Raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Hey folks, welcome to the Raising Cain Show. We've got quite an interesting night tonight. As many of you already know, Donald Trump, our president, has been shot. He is doing well, and so we are going to be talking about some of that tonight, along with me, sharing about our guest tonight. And so this is something that is just a horrible experience that unfortunately our country is in, a horrible place that we're in right now. And unfortunately, there was also someone who lost their life at this event, along with the shooter has been put down. But we're going to be talking tonight about that. We're also going to get into the title of this show, which is the U.S. at War? And I'm going to be having my good friend S. Marshall Wilson on to discuss that. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Marshall Wilson. I'm going to bring him on here. Hey, Marshall, how you doing?
Hey, Nate. Thanks for making time for me.
Yeah, so I normally have have all my notes all set up, but things have been kind of crazy, as you can imagine, the last hour here, and so I am having trouble finding those. But oh, here we go, I got them. But I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself. I apologize, but please give a breakdown of kind of your background.
Yeah, don't apologize. I mean, today's a wild day, so I just appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I think it's really interesting that we had decided on the topic of the show, the discussion today, is the U.S. at war, before this incident. And I just think it's interesting. But my name is Marshall Wilson, and I am a retired combat veteran U.S. Army infantry officer. My wife is a retired Navy captain. We have 9 kids. Not real sure how that happened, but my entire purpose in life is to ensure that my kids can raise their kids in a free country. And pursuant to that, as I said, I served 20 years in the Army, and I earned a master's degree in national security from the Institute of World Politics, and I'm currently working on my PhD in public policy focused on national security, and I teach at Liberty University online in a master's program on military leadership or military operations. I teach command leadership, asymmetric warfare, and also a course on military analysis. Now, like I said, that's just online. I'm an instructor. I'm not a professor or anything along those lines, but maybe one day, who knows? I've also served 2 terms as West Virginia delegate. That's what we call our state representatives in West Virginia. So 2 terms in the legislature, and I'm currently the Constitution Party candidate for governor of West Virginia. And basically what it comes down to is I'll do whatever it takes to make sure my kids can raise their kids in a free country. Thanks for a minute to talk about myself.
So I want to just share about how I came to meet you, and I think the first person that I when I was first deciding that I was going to run, I decided I wanted to set up a meeting, with a business owner, and and sit down and talk with them and find out what life was like for them. And we were looking around for different places, and my brother-in-law was calling around different places, and he ended up calling Mountaineer Barbecue or Mountaineer
Mountain
Meat Smokers.
Yeah.
And
Travis
so
Bishop.
so I ended up sitting down with Travis Bishop, and it was interesting. The very first question that he asked me, he said, when I was driving here to sit down and talk with you, so I kept thinking about what I wanted to ask you right off the bat. And he said, and the single question that just kept coming up was, do you believe we're free? And it was such a profound question. And it was interesting because as we started to go down and talk about things, he hit on every single point that was on my, my, I guess you could say my mission statement for why I was running.
Right.
And so as we talked, he goes, do you know Marshall Wilson? And I go, no, I don't. He goes, you should talk to him. And then I ended up meeting somebody else, and they said the same thing. You remind me of Marshall Wilson. You should talk to him if you haven't talked to him. And so that's how I ended up finding out about you. And so I ended up, I think I called Travis back and I asked him, I said, hey, do you have this, this Marshall Wilson guy's number? I said, because I think I want to talk to him and get to know him, because his name keeps coming up everywhere I go. so that's how, that's how I ended up, reaching out to you and talking to you. And
I consider it an honor that people were telling you that you remind them of me. I think that's an honor. I'm grateful to hear that. Thank you.
Well, I think you and I are cut from the same cloth, and
yes,
we both have a strong faith in God. We both know the history of our country and have a love of country. We both have served in the U.S. Army. We both, you in combat, me as a Signal Corps guy. But it has been it's been a sad thing to see our country go down the road that it's gone down. And
yes,
and I'm in the midst right now of reading a book by that was just released by Victor David Hansen, and it's called The End of Everything. And it is about all of these great wars in the past and these civilizations that basically don't exist today because they were wiped out. Right. And it's very fascinating, but you see a lot of the same kind of hubris, in our nation today that was in many of these countries that, basically were wiped out because they thought they were too big to fall. Right. And, and I look at our enemies and it's a different kind of warfare that we're facing today. It's not as much of a kinetic war. It seems like we're facing, a lot of economic problems, and we're facing war, that is, basically, the Chinese funding and fueling the drug, war on our southern border, and, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans that way. It's asymmetric, or a fifth generation war, as some people I've heard them call it. But before we get into the meat of our topic tonight, obviously, I think we have to pay, some attention to what has happened today, and it fits, really ideally with what we're talking about, because the key, I think, the focus of our enemy has been to divide us as a nation. It's like that saying, united we stand, divided we fall. And so I'm going to bring up here on the screen the a video clip of the attempted assassination on Trump today. So let me turn the audio on.
What happened? What happened?
So you can see there that, Trump was shot. Clearly, his ear was grazed. And, unfortunately, like I said, there was a bystander that was killed. But, what amazes me in this whole situation is just Trump he is just I don't know how to say it other than this. He's a tough guy. He is a badass. I don't think since Teddy Roosevelt have we ever seen somebody get up after being shot, stand up, throw their fist into the air, and and you could tell he's shouting fight, 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 and he's clearly bleeding from his ear. But I want to just play this clip real quick here.
Yeah.
I thought he was saying some other F word at first. But yeah, but it's just, I mean, if there was any doubt who was going to be our next president before this, I think it's clear now, without any doubt that Biden's going to go down and Trump is going to win. I just don't see any other option.
Let's be clear here. You mean Biden's going to go down electorally, right?
Oh yes, yes. Let's be clear. I think Trump is going to beat him. I think Trump is going to beat Biden. Like Biden beat Medicare, right? So for those of you that don't know what I'm referring to the debate where Biden had one of his gaffes and he said, we beat Medicare. And Trump goes, yeah, you beat it to death. So yeah, I feel encouraged to know that we've got somebody fighting for us in the presidency that has the strength of character to stand up after something like that and not cower. Because one of the biggest problems that I see going on right now in our country is how we are looked at by our enemies.
Absolutely.
And the weakness that has been portrayed, by our current administration. So, I want to ask you, I guess one thing that I want to start off with is with this kind of thing, with assassination attempts that are going on, it's clear that, I mean, you've worked in operational security in the military.
Right.
What do you think went wrong here with the Secret Service?
Well, with my background, I actually commanded what's called BDOC, Base Defense Operations Center for CJSOTF, Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force in Iraq. And basically, one of the most important things to securing an area is that you have to understand that securing an area doesn't mean standing in it, looking out. It means standing beyond it, looking toward it, and seeing what the threats might actually be. So the fact that someone was able to mount a rooftop anywhere within small arms range of the president is a profound failure of security. And I can't imagine any security professional allowing that to happen.
So what I got here is a picture of this. Apparently is where the shooter was, right here up at the top where the red pin mark is. And over here is where Trump would have been. And, they set up, of course, the stadium kind of around this area. I've actually been to this location. My wife and I were at a Trump rally at the same place in 2020.
So clear field of fire there. There's nothing between the rooftop and the point where the president was standing. Nate, I don't know how good your shooting is. I've heard it's pretty good, but I'm pretty sure that any mildly competent rifleman from that range should be able to at least put a couple rounds close to the president. He fired what, 6 times?
I think it was five times is what I've heard, but
okay, 5 then.
Been reported.
I'll take the correction. So 5 times, put a bystander down who was relatively close, and actually nicked the president's ear. I mean, there is no excuse for that.
I mean, clearly from the sound of it, they've said now, they've confirmed that it was a .22 rifle, and which makes sense because the sound was not it was not a very loud sound, and some people even thought it was fireworks. But it was clearly a semi-automatic rifle because you heard I think the last 3 shots at least were fired in quick succession.
Right.
The shooter was shot dead, and so we have that to be grateful for, them taking him out.
Do we? Wait. I'm sorry, Nate. This is an important point to me. You say that the shooter was taken out, and that's a good thing. Well, how do we interrogate a dead shooter? How do we figure out what
Well,
motivated
true.
him? Yes, sir.
But my bigger concern was that he could have, started spraying the crowd. Apparently he did shoot and kill a man, shot a man that was in the stadium behind Trump, shot him with I think he got a round to the head. And so it was, he was killed instantly. And there was a woman that was shot in the arm. So for that reason, I'm glad that they took him out immediately.
Absolutely.
But there's a video of some guys that were apparently, they were basically standing kind of over in this area. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving or not, probably not. But okay, to the left of where the shooter was, they were standing over here listening to the rally. And they saw the guy go up there. And then they ended up, basically alerting the police and all of that. I want you to listen to this and again, just give me your assessment, from an operational security standpoint. Let me find real quick. I'll bring it up here. Let's see. Here, I'm going to get a view of the body. Give me a second. I'll pop this.
I think they hit him because the guy is.
You can see the guy up there on top of that roof.
Yeah.
So see, there were people here.
You can see the guy
that saw this guy. They saw him low crawling along the roof there, along that roof line.
I think they hit him because the guy is. He looks dead.
And so this is apparently, where the guy had climbed up onto that building. So let me pull up this other video though, because this was very telling to me. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah, here it is. All right. All right, I want you to listen to this.
Someone who was here. You weren't inside the event, but you were just outside. Tell us what you saw.
So we had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farming Greenhouse here. We had a party, and we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees out there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, but we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots rang out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service?
We were telling the police. We were pointing at them for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? This is not a big place.
Did you see, obviously everyone, when the shooting started, everyone was very panicked. Did you see what happened to him at all?
Oh, yeah, they blew his head off.
Okay, sorry.
Secret Service blew his head off.
Okay, just be careful because we don't know quite know who's watching, but you're pretty sure they shot the guy?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
You saw that happen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you see them go up to him afterwards, or?
They crawled up on the roof. They had their guns pointed at him, make sure he was dead. He was dead, and that was it. It was over.
It's incredibly shocking.
The guy was on the roof right there. You can see the white roof right there.
Did you get a look at him? Could you?
No, other than he was in muted colors, tan type clothing. We saw the rifle flinging around as he was trying to crawl. I mean, we saw the rifle, 100%.
Do you know about guns? Do you know what kind of weapon it was?
Oh, I absolutely know about guns, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a rifle of some sort. I wouldn't know, I wasn't close enough to read the label on it, but,
Sure.
it was a rifle of some sort. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you process what you've just seen?
I don't know what to say, man. All I'll tell you is, if I walked up close to there with anything that Secret Service considered a problem, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you right now. But I don't know why a guy who we're standing there pointing out to police and Secret Service is crawling up the roof. Yes, right there by that tree. We were outside the security perimeter. But my question is, there's only a few buildings around here. Why is Secret Service not on every building here?
Well, there's a whole bunch of questions I think that are going to come.
There's a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Yes, she was right in front of me. She kept going back and forth right in front of me. Yes.
Tell us about her.
I mean, nice horse, nice lady running with a flag. Seemed very, patriotic.
But what's the significance of her?
No, he asked me if I saw a horse.
Okay.
So clearly, to me, the biggest problem here is they had very few buildings in this area. Why the heck they didn't have somebody up there monitoring that? It just blows my mind.
Well, not only that, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that absolutely should have taken place. First of all, if I were in charge of a security team, and I know this isn't about me, but I'm just talking through where my head would be. First of all, the security assessment of that situation, I would have had all the terrain. I would have had all the line of sight shots, within small arms range. I would have cleared them all, anything that I could control, such as lock up access to a rooftop, whatever I could do there, that would be done. Lock doors, like I say, or whatever. The next thing is I would have visual at least on each position. And then anything I couldn't put visual on, I'd put a body on. I'd put an actual security personnel on that site. I don't know if they had helicopters available, but frankly, a single helicopter, maintaining a certain altitude should have been able to scan the whole area. Now, from the photos that you showed, I didn't see a bunch of trees. There was no tree line that anybody could have hidden in. So basically, anyone who was within small arms range should have been available to anyone who was at an altitude or who was actually paying attention to the specific targeted positions from which someone could have shot.
Yeah.
Those are all identifiable terrain features. It's not like it's a surprise. You don't walk into, if you're a trained professional, you don't walk into a position like that and say, wait, he shot from the rooftop? Of course that's where the guy's going to shoot from. That's the first place you look.
Yeah. Here's a picture of them after they got up on that roof. This was them, apparently recovering the body.
Right.
And assessing. But yeah, that's exactly, this is exactly what the guy described.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of crazy that, that this could happen. I can't imagine that somebody's going to get fired over this. I mean, I can't imagine somebody not getting fired.
Basically considering all of the things that have been going on with our government over the past few years, I don't see any reason to think anyone will be held accountable.
Yeah, that is true. We're talking about the Biden administration here.
Right. And I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just saying that I would love to agree with you, but frankly, the information that I've seen, the evidence that we have available just basically indicates that they're not going to hold anybody accountable.
I want to share this other video. I want to warn everybody that's listening right now, there's some foul language in it. So, just be aware of that. If you got small children in the room, you may want to, cover their ears. But I want to show this video because this came out a couple of days ago. And this is somebody who posted this video. And this is what we've been seeing. This kind of talk, this kind of threats being made. Why hasn't the Secret Service arrested this person? Why have, look, they went around and arrested a whole bunch of people on for January 6th, threw their butts in jail, and they've thrown away the key and not given these people, really their day in court.
Right.
Every single one of these Hollywood people that have called for the assassination of Trump, including this person right here, she's got like 1.1 million viewers or something like that, and she made this video and posted it. And how these people can still be walking without being put in prison is beyond me. I think they should be given the January 6th treatment, personally. So let me play this real quick.
I'm done. I'm fucking seriously done. The Supreme Court has pissed me off so much right now. Like, so much. Joe, you're a reasonable man. You don't want to do this, but here's the reality. This is a fucking war. This is a war now, and we are fighting for our fucking country. And these assholes are going to take it away. They're going to take it away. Fuck you, Clarence Uncle Thomas. Fuck you. Joe, you now have the right to take that bitch Trump out. Take him out, Joe. If he was Hitler and this was 1940, you'd take him out. Well, he is Hitler, and this is 1940. Take him the fuck out. Blow him up. Blow him up, or they'll blow us up. Facts.
Well,
That
you
is
know, what really gets my attention and what really convinces me that this is a valid argument is that it was ended with the statement facts.
right.
I can't argue with it. It's facts.
I mean, I don't want to make light of it. This
Right,
person's
right.
clearly got some mental health issues. But this
No,
is the mentality.
No, Nate, look, man, I love you to death, and I hate to keep disagreeing with you, but this is not a mental health issue. This is an issue of evil. Okay.
Oh, it is, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
So the thing is, we can't excuse it by saying they're mentally ill. I mean, we've all got our little quirks. We're all a little broken, but these are people who have intentionally made decisions that lead them to the point that they are actually choosing to eschew the peaceful change of power, right? Which is what holds this country together. Look, I don't agree with anybody who's been president in my lifetime on every single thing they've done. Not the point. The point is, this is the way we do things. And she says that we're at war. Well, let's define war. So the definition I use that I learned in my master's program from some pretty smart guys is the implementation by any entity of any combination of the elements of power to compel another entity to comply with the original entity's intent. So in other words, let's talk about what the elements of power are. In international relations, it's diplomacy, information, military, and economics. DIME, right?
Yeah.
So the elements of power within the U.S., in other words, domestically, would be politics, which is diplomacy, information, military, and economics. Well, if we extract military from it, we can still use the elements of politics, information, and economics to make war. If we use those methods of compulsion to compel someone to comply with our wishes, that is war. So these people saying that we're at war sounds like they either believe that we are using some method of compulsion against them, or that they intend to use some method of compulsion against us. Yeah, I think the U.S. is at war, and I think that the U.S. has been at war for decades, for generations actually, and I can go back and back that up, but I'm probably talking too much anyway.
Well, tell me, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, I noticed that woman, for example, and the left in general. I mean, there seems to be, it's almost like this mind virus, where they have lost all sense of reality. Like she said, we're gonna, they're gonna take our country away from us. She's using, patriotic terms in her, we need to fight for our country and all this kind of stuff. Clearly, these people are buying into a lie. They're also being fed this stuff day in and day out by the media, by Hollywood. You've got all of the, remember who was it? Kathy Griffin. Remember when she had the chopped off
Severed
head?
Yeah.
That's right. You got things like that. You've got who was it? There was you've got all kinds of actors that have basically called for Trump to be assassinated. Snoop Dogg made that video about it.
Snoop Dogg, because well, the thing is that it's not a mind virus, it's a spirit. It's a spirit of revolution. Okay, so let's go back and talk about a couple of things that from the beginning, the U.S. started in revolution, right? The U.S. Now, America was formed of 13 colonies. We all know that. But the thing is, we fought a revolution against a tyrant, and we established a constitutional republic based on the principles that all men are created equal, and that we all have, we're all endowed with certain unalienable rights, and that government is instituted to defend those rights. What happened was, at the beginning of the 20th century, the quote progressives actually fought a political, informational, and economic war against that nation and established a new government. I hope everybody understands that. So the United States of America is simply a government. The current United States of America is a government that was established by the progressives at the beginning of the 20th century, which actually usurped all of the power and authority of the United States of America that was formed in 1789. So the thing is, what we really need now is a political, informational, and economic counter revolution, because we fought a revolution in 1776. And then, of course, the progressives fought a revolution, political, informational, and economic revolution, beginning of the 20th century. And so they fought a counter revolution. They actually brought us back to rule by tyrants. Technocracy is what we have now.
Yeah.
And now what we're trying to do is trying to fight a political, informational, and economic counter revolution to go back to what we had when we actually established the Constitution of the United States of America. The problem is, this is the problem. We, the free citizens of the United States of America, were willing to allow this counter-revolution of the progressives to usurp the authority, the power, the form of our government without bleeding. They're not willing to do that.
Mm. Yeah.
They're going to insist on the military.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
The military element.
Well, it's interesting that you don't seem to see these types of things, happening from those on the right. Even when even when you see the mainstream media try to make claims that somebody is,
right,
is on the right, you dig into it and you find out they're socialist. It's always some Marxist or some socialist, some left winger, because that's what they believe in. They believe in using violence in order to bring about a bloody revolution. In fact, what I see is what's going on. If I were to look at where we are as a country and where we could be headed, I mean, thank God Trump wasn't killed.
Yeah.
Because I think that could have started, violent.
We understand that's their intent, right?
That's right.
Their intent is to poke us enough so that one of us fires first.
That's right. So that there are some good old boys that you and I probably both know.
Good old boys.
That's right. But they're looking for an opportunity. And so
right.
So, that's what they're trying to push us towards. And I do think that it is interesting, though, like if you compare, say, the American Civil War and the American Revolution, what we're seeing going on in terms of the strife in America seems more akin to the American Revolution than the Civil War. The Civil War really seemed like it was more divided by geography. You had more of an issue where it was, states' rights versus the, federalism, and there was a lot going on with slavery really wasn't what it was about. Obviously, for those that have actually studied history, it was more about, trying to maintain central government with, and it was had a lot to do with the North, obviously, industrializing, and they had a lot of money and a lot of power. And one of the things that strikes me, though, is I was doing research into my own family history, and I had an ancestor that was in the American Revolution. And when I was looking into this, I found out that there were 2 battles that my ancestor had been in that I had never heard of before. He was in the Battle of Cowpens, which that I had heard of. I mean, everybody knows about that war. It's the big famous scene from, The Patriot, right? And he was a militiaman with the South Carolina Regiment or militia, and he was on horseback. But what I found out was that he was in 2 other battles called the First and the Second Battle of District 96. And I'd never heard of him, so I looked him up, started researching about it, come to find out this was essentially warfare between neighbors. It was loyalists versus patriots, and they were basically killing each other.
Yep.
And it was kind of an interesting thing to see because, you don't think about, when you learn history, you don't think about that part of history. You just think about the enemy being, the redcoats. You don't think about all the people who were loyalists, to Great Britain, and that, turned in their neighbors for being, rebels and things like that. And I look today and I see this kind of dividing happening, between Americans. It's been happening over the last decade, but it's hitting a fever pitch, really in the last 5 years. And, and I don't know, I don't know, to me, if we're going to, what is going to be the end of this, but ultimately I think it's going to get worse.
Well, I think you're probably right, but there are a couple of things we need to keep in mind. First of all, these things are not happening. They're being done intentionally.
Mhm.
And they're being done by the technocrats. And these are the technocrats that Woodrow Wilson and the progressives intentionally set up to run this country, to take it out of the hands of the people. In his study of administration, Woodrow Wilson specifically said that the people are not smart enough for self-governance, that what we have to do is take it out of their hands, and we smart people have to run the country for them. Now, keep in mind, he grew up on the heels, he came into his own on the heels of the American Civil War. This paper that I'm talking about was published in 1887. That's 25 years after the Civil War. So anyway, that actually became the basis of the Progressive Party, the progressive movement in the United States, restructuring government so that smart people were running the government instead of normal people. That's the way they saw it. So that's point number one. The second thing is that we the people, even the people I disagree with wholeheartedly, the people who live lives completely different from mine, we need to agree that we're not going to let them tell us how to live. This is the answer, okay? So the idea is they want to push us to the point that we are killing each other. We neighbors are killing each other. I'm not prepared to kill any of my neighbors.
Me neither.
Now, I'm prepared to defend my family and to defend our rights. But, my neighbors will actually have to present a threat to them. But the thing is, the people behind all of this, the technocrats, are actually pushing us to this verge to get us to kill each other so that they can determine which of them will actually be in charge of the oligarchy. Now, they're all working together to establish the oligarchy. Look, I was a Republican delegate, a Republican state representative, and I was asked to leave the Republican Party of West Virginia by the chair of the West Virginia Republican Party because I kept quoting the Constitution at them. That is a quote. That's actually what she said. All you do is run around spouting the Constitution at everybody all the time. And that's why she wanted me out of the party. And she got her wish. I'm now with the Constitution Party. But the point is, we the people, all right, we think that we have a party here and a party there, and my party's on my side and your party's on your side, and it's red versus blue. No, the red versus blue is all in our heads between all of us. Those people who actually have set all that up, they just can't wait for us to kill each other. And then they're going to pick up the pieces and they're going to establish their oligarchy. Only this time, it won't be in secret. This time, it won't be pretending that there's a constitutional republic. They're just going to go ahead and take over. So you and I and everybody else who disagrees with us, but who wants to live their own lives, needs to agree with us that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And everybody who agrees with that and is willing to stand up for that is my brother, is my sister, is my neighbor, and we're on the same team. Now, everything we disagree about, we can discuss within that context, and we can be decent, civilized human beings. But the thing is, they're poking us. They're poking us with a stick, and they're saying, why don't you guys get in there and kill each other? No. You know, we need to initiate a political, informational, and economic war against these people in the capitals who think that they own us. And they need, you know, it's like a cockfight. They're throwing us all in there and telling us to kill each other. I'm not going to do it. Anyway,
I want to pull up something here. Trump just released a comment on Twitter. Let me pull this up real quick. So it says, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all of law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at this time about the shooter, who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America. So that's good to get. Yeah, it's good to get, get a statement directly from President Trump. It confirms a lot of what we're hearing on the news and everything. And sometimes, when you see these things, the media will report on stuff erroneously, but it looks like they got a lot of the stuff right this time. So,
yeah, that's good.
So, with all of this and everything that we've been talking about, what do you think is the greatest threat to American national security right now?
Absolutely, the greatest threat is that the American people don't know their history. They don't know the founding. They don't understand the principles behind it, the philosophy behind it. They don't understand the concept of human liberty and why it is so important to defend human liberty. For me to defend your rights, for you to defend my rights. And the short version is that if you're not free, I can't be free. And if you're not free, my kids can't be free. So the thing is that if we can all agree that our neighbors need to be free and that their rights are worth defending, I think that all of this we can come together and actually decide how we're going to deal with it, and we can deal with it well. And the greatest threat to American national security is not the Chinese Communist Party, although they are a huge threat, mainly because they've infiltrated our government, and they are a big part of what's going on here. But I think that the American people hold all the power. All power is derived from the people. And the only reason these things can actually happen, that they're capable of doing these things to us, is that we will not work together. That is the greatest threat to American national security. Now, don't get me wrong, there are all kinds of external threats. We could talk about them all day. And there are all kinds of internal threats. But the root issue is that the American people will not agree with themselves to defend themselves.
Do you, when I look at today's generation, and I've got major concerns, it seems that people have lost the ability to utilize critical thinking, and instead they've replaced it with critical theory, and which of course is where all this wokeism is coming from. You've got all of this division being, thrown at us all the time. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I had friends that were Black. I had friends that were Hispanic, and we hung out, and we didn't even think about that we were different races. That was not even, that wasn't even a part of the equation. Now, granted, I grew up in, Southern California, so it's a pretty, big melting pot down there. But it wasn't even a thought. Like there really was not a whole lot of like, you know, nobody was thinking about racial injustice. Let's put it that way. None of that started until Obama. I mean, it's crazy. But, you know, I remember sitting down with my grandfather and I asked him, I said, hey, grandfather, what do you think about, you know, and I didn't vote for Obama, but I was like, when Obama got elected, I mean, I kind of knew he was going to get elected. I mean, you know, it seemed pretty obvious, you know, that the country wanted a black president. And I think a lot of people were hoping that was going to end, you know, the racial divide and the all of the politics of race and everything. And it seems like all it did was make it worse. And in fact, that's what my grandfather warned me. He told me that's what he thought was going to happen. And I thought, why would you think that? In fact, I was thinking, oh, you know, maybe he's being a little racist or something, but he wasn't. He had been around long enough to see, you know, how people react. And I think he saw what was going on, you know, with Jeremiah Wright and, you know, and Obama's separating himself from that, distancing himself, but he could see right through it that Obama was a very racist individual. He could see that this was a man who was hung up on this whole woke ideology of, you know, racial discrimination and disparity and all of that. And it seems like, and that's what intersectionalism is, right? It's all about, you know, victim points. You know, if you're black, if you're gay, if you're lesbian, if you're transgender, that's the new one now. If you are whatever it is, they add all these things up, and you know, whoever gets the most victim points wins. But it seems like it is destroying our country, and it is heavily ingrained in today's youth. I think largely because the communists have taken over our public schools. And they are indoctrinating our kids. And it's not just their public schools, but it's also the media. I mean, I remember when you know, you could watch a major movie and not see a gay person in the movie. That almost doesn't exist anymore. Every time you turn on a show, it seems like there's an agenda to push either some sort of racial, you know, stuff or to push some sort of, you know, LGBTQ agenda or some other agenda but it's all the same. It's all about dividing us. It's all about saying, oh, poor this person or poor that person. And this person's been, you know, treated badly, or they don't have the same rights as everybody else and all of that. And it seems like that is the very thing at the root, you know, of destroying our country right now is this division.
So again, our nation is founded on the principle that all men are created equal. Now, we didn't actually achieve, and a lot of people didn't even attempt to achieve that concept early on, but it was at least recognized, right? Because we still had slavery in the United States. Mm-hmm. Are you going to say all men are created equal if you've still got some who are held in chattel bondage to other men? So the thing, though, is that most people seem to think today, once again, there's no critical thinking, there's only critical theory. So what they've been indoctrinated to believe is that being equal means that we all have all the same stuff. Well, that's not true. I mean, I'm 5'7". I'm 5'7". I've got 2 bad knees and a really bad attitude, and I'm 55 years old. I want to play in the NBA. It's what I want. I demand it. You know, you don't have enough short Irishmen in the NBA. Make me a forward and give me an NBA player's salary. And of course, everybody's going to laugh about that. Well, the thing is, that's the whole concept that has gone out the window. We no longer make decisions based on virtue, and by virtue I mean capability, you know, all that sort of thing. So instead, we make decisions based on this political idea. And I want you to understand, and I know you probably understand this, but I'd like to make sure that everybody understands that the political movement is what matters here, not the people, not the actual complaint, not the actual what these technocrats do, what these oligarchs do is they find a movement that is moving, that has some momentum behind it, that has some political power, because that's what political power is, numbers of voters who are involved in it. And then they infiltrate it and they turn it to their own purposes. Now you can see this in supposedly left-wing movements. You can see it in supposedly right-wing movements. Nate, you can see it in the church, man.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So what we're saying here, for instance, the what's it called? The environmental movement. There were some very serious complaints that need to be dealt with, that the environmental movement was founded to address. So the environmental movement starts building up some political power, and then it's infiltrated by people who take it and turn it into this political thing that they use to bash people who are doing things they don't like. And it happens in everything. Let's talk about the Tea Party. What happened to the Tea Party? The Taxed Enough Already Party. So you got this organization that's built up of solid citizens who want nothing more than to ensure that their government stops robbing them blind and misusing the funds that they give it, right? That's what the Taxed Enough Already Party was all about. So the Tea Party was generally a part of the Republican Party. Most of the members, I think, were probably registered Republicans. And then what happened was the Republican Party fought it for a while and then finally said, oh gosh, these guys are going to cost us elections if we don't pretend like we agree with them, because they've got so much momentum, right? And the reason, of course, they had momentum was because enough citizens agreed with them on the principles that they were establishing. So they actually infiltrated and they said, you know what, you guys are doing such a great job, but you're all amateurs and we're professionals, and we're going to move in and we're going to do your job better than you are. Aren't you tired of trying to do it on your own with the resources you have? And they infiltrated, they took over, and they actually just wore the Tea Party's skin like a skin suit. They consumed the Tea Party from the inside. They took all of the resources, all of the momentum that the Tea Party had built up, and then they just wore its outer, its outer trappings as a skin suit, and pretended that the Republican Party was heading off to the right and was actually going to uphold small government, low taxation principles. And then, of course, here we are now. But they killed the Tea Party. They did it on purpose, and they did it insidiously.
Well, they did it with the help too of the IRS. Let's not forget, which was never held accountable. Lois Lerner, in fact. But good things sometimes. It's like there's always a silver lining. One of the things that came out of it was the MovCap, group here in West Virginia. They started in Ohio, and they were originally, it was the Tea Party, the Ohio Tea Party, and Glenn Newman, who started that, got sick of it when he saw it, basically turning into something that wasn't supposed to be, and they had all these problems with the IRS, and so he said, all right, you know what, we're not going to have a group that the IRS can monitor. We're just going to be concerned citizens that are going to meet at churches. And you know what? Out of all the groups that I have seen in all of my time campaigning, by far, they were the most effective group in terms of like actual activism and getting out there and doing stuff. When I went down and supported a bill, or our campaign wrote a bill for Parents' Bill of Rights, and we went down to the state legislature, almost everybody that came down there came from that group, and they were down there supporting it and helping me to lobby the delegates and the senators. And it was a very good learning experience. Unfortunately, it failed in the Senate, but now the main obstacle to that, I think, has been removed. So thanks to Tom Willis.
We did a really good job firing Craig Blair.
Yes.
I told him back in 2020 that we were going to fire him this time around, and he laughed at me.
Yeah. So we got rid of Maroney and Chris Rose is in there now, and of course they still have a general election to get through, but I have no reason to believe that they won't win the general election. So but it is a citizen activism at the local level by far is the most effective tool in changing our communities, and it does have an impact. It does have an impact, in the higher level elections even. I am, one thing I wanted to ask you is, how can, in your opinion, how can Americans secure liberty for the next generation, especially when you have a generation right now that just doesn't seem to be interested? I mean, in our in our last election, we had actually the last several elections, 80% of the people who voted in the primaries were over age 55. Where's all the young people? Where's all the working class? I mean, the people who are actually working, where is their vote?
Well, as I'm traveling around the state, running for governor, collecting signatures to get my name on the ballot, people keep telling me I don't vote anymore. It doesn't matter.
I heard that too.
Doesn't matter who I vote for, because I vote for the guy I think is going to do the job. He gets in there and he turns into one of them. And of course, my response is, they didn't turn into anybody. They just lied to you about who they were to get elected. And the other thing, of course, is they don't believe the elections are secure. So they just quit. And I mean, who can blame them? But still, you got to stay in the fight. You have to stay in the fight. So the first thing that I would say we have to do to secure liberty for our children, our grandchildren, first thing we got to do is we, the people, have to agree that it's not any faction of the people against any faction of the people. It's the people against the government. That the government is here to turn us all into farm animals, and that we need to stand together against that. We need to stand up for our rights, and we need to reestablish constitutional governance in our own local areas, in our own states, and in the federal government. It's going to take a while. It took them 100 years to turn us into what we are. So it's going to take us a while to get back. It might take a couple of generations, but we got to start now. And the first thing we need to do is we need to agree that it's all about individual human liberty. All right. It's not about using the government to make people behave the way that I want them to behave. I'm an ordained Baptist minister. I have some very, very solid thoughts on the way people should behave. I mean, there's no two ways about what I think about it. But what I also know is it's not the government's business. It is not my business to use the monopoly of force that we have given to the government to compel my fellow citizens to behave the way that I want them to. That is the definition of war. I will not make war on my fellow citizens. What I will make war on is the government that's making war on all of us. It's trying to use its force to compel us all to behave the way we want it to. Is there any real difference between a government that actually is composed of elected employees who generally see the world the way that I do, and try to use the force of government to compel my neighbors to behave that way, and what we've got now, which is a government that's composed of people who see things very differently than I do, who are now trying to compel me to behave the way they want me to behave? Effectively, there's no difference. What we really need to do is make sure the government stops trying to compel citizens to behave anyway. And all it does is it secures our rights. The rest of this stuff needs to be handled in society, which is a completely different organ than government. We need to stop trying to use the government to run each other's lives.
So we're at the top of the hour, and normally I only go an hour with these shows, but we're going to go a little bit longer than that because there's some other things that I want to get into with you. But I do need to take a break and give a word to our sponsors. So we will be back in a short minute.
Not believe, no detergent, no hot water, no fabric softener. Now you even threw away all the chemicals to clean your home. I don't need to buy sprays to cut through grease. I don't need to buy window cleaners. I don't need to buy carpet shampoo. I don't need to buy things to mop my floor. I don't need to buy things to take pesticide off my vegetables, fruits, and fish. Oh my gosh, where did this come from? I'll tell you where it came from. It came from hospitals. This is actually a photo of a huge commercial hospital laundry technology that cost in excess of $100,000 if you bought that whole thing, and it'll fill up your garage. That's how big it is. And what we've done with the advent of microelectronic technology, my team and I constantly use microtechnology just like your smartphone. The new EcoWasher SE is a chemical-free laundry and cleaning solution. Imagine, no more detergent, no more chemicals, saves you money, pays for itself, gives you a healthier life, and simplifies doing laundry. And now we're going to include 2 free ThunderPure Safe Air Minis that purifies your home and sanitizes your surfaces like a thunderstorm in nature, eliminates all odors. Plus, you're receiving $100 off by using code podcast on the new EcoWasher SE. Let me remind you, 2 free ThunderPure Safe Air Minis plus $100 off during this podcast. Podcast is your coupon code at
military use when they need unlimited power during critical missions. Civilians like you can now get their hands on the exact same technology within 24 hours for pennies on the dollar. Folks, as a former infantry soldier, I can tell you this is the best and cheapest way to get reliable, unlimited energy. And no, I'm not talking about regular generators or the expensive solar panels. You don't have to be an electrician to do it. There's no maintenance needed. It doesn't take up a lot of space. And the best part, you won't need to rely on the power grid anymore. Click below now and hit play.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
Welcome back to the Raising Cain Show, and I'm Nate Cain, your host, with our guest, S. Marshall Wilson. So, Marshall, we were talking about, is our country at war? And, I wanted to just cover a couple of extra things before we get into, I think what is more important, which is what you're doing to try to change things. But before we go there, can you tell us, from your point of view, from your assessment, where do you see as kind of like the pressure points right now from a national security point that we're facing as a country? I mean, obviously we've got the border, but, give me some of your assessment on that.
Okay, well, the border is obvious. The thing is that you can't do anything if you don't have a secure area in which to do it. When I was a grunt, we didn't just go out and walk around in the woods. We had a patrol base. We had to have a place where we could get our stuff together, prepare for operations, look out for each other, get medical treatment, whatever else. But the thing is, if your area is overrun, the war's over. There's no war going on. What you have now is you can run an insurgency against the occupiers, but you've got to secure your perimeter. So yeah, you're right. That's point number one. Point number two is that there are agents provocateur, just to get really cute about it. There are people who are intentionally setting us at odds against each other about things that are not really critical elements of national security. So they're trying to actually get us to fight each other. They are convincing us that, it's blue versus red. They're convincing us that what matters more than anything else in the world is this next election, because it's those guys who are running for office who are actually trying to destroy us. And that guy's trying to destroy half the country, and the other guy's trying to destroy half the country. The simple fact of the matter is those two guys have so little power to destroy the country. But what's really what we should really be concerned about is the people behind them, the technocrats, who are actually running the systems that keep the country going. All right. And the thing is, they are all agreed that they don't want us in charge. They don't want to have to listen to us. They're smarter than we are. And they are the ones who actually know what's going on. So all of us need to step aside or we're going to get plowed under. And they're going to use the people on this side to plow under the people on that side who get in the way, and vice versa. Now, you might think that I'm kind of making this up, or that, there's no historical precedent for this, but if you actually look at the foundation of the Soviet state in Russia, and then how it grew into the USSR, actually what they did was you had the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. Right, the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks stated that they had the same principles, but the Mensheviks wanted to win through elections and by convincing people and by education and that sort of thing. And the Bolsheviks said, no, we're not going to win arguments. We need to win shootouts. That's how we're going to do this. But one of the other things that they did was they actually established, they would set up systems in various cities and in various areas to break down the social order, right? So one of the things they would do is they'd pay people to go have sex in public parks.
Mm.
They'd pay
I've never
people to
heard
get
about
on
that.
they'd pay people to get onto a bus naked. And the whole point was to drive the average citizen to a point where they kind of gave up. They just kind of said, the world's gone crazy. Everything's falling apart. There's nothing we can do about this. We need somebody who will step in and establish order and make all these people act right. So who stepped in? Well, the Bolsheviks. They stepped right in and said, you know what? We're on your team. We are going to make these idiots behave. And they put a bunch of people up against a wall, and they put a bunch of people in gulags. And the normal people said what? They said, oh my God, these people are vicious. No, that's not what they said. What they said was, thank God.
Yeah, good
Finally,
riddance.
there's some order. Yeah, finally there's some order. These people who are behaving so stupidly, they're off the streets, all that sort of thing. That was the beginning. Now, don't get me wrong. There were people, Solzhenitsyn and others, who actually pointed out that things were not going well, right? But the point is, at the very beginning, the average citizen said, thank God somebody's in charge and they're actually making things make sense.
It sounds like that. It sounds similar to how how the Islamic world has, basically been able to take over some of these countries like Iran, and enforce Sharia law, the same kind of thing.
How did Mussolini take over Italy? He made the trains run on time. So what we're dealing with here is these things are not happening. They're being done to us. And what you're seeing is our society is being dismantled. So the things that we depend on, right? And that all of that's economics, all of that is wrapped up in it, but it's actually just what we expect as Americans to be our lives. And it's intentionally being destroyed so that we will say, throw our hands up and say, man, this is just stupid. This system doesn't work. This constitutional republicanism is just the dumbest thing that ever happened. That's why we have what we have now. Would someone smart and strong please come in and establish some order? Now, you probably know about anacyclosis, but basically, Aristotle stated that there were 6 general forms of government. 3 of them were pure, 3 of them were corrupted, and each one of they were actually paired. So there's a pure and a corrupted form of each one. So there's monarchy, which of course in American ears, that's just a dirty word, but actually the monarchy of a single man using every bit of his power, his capabilities to serve the people and secure their rights was what he had in mind there. So that's a pure form of government. Then there's aristocracy, which is also a pure form of government in Aristotle's teaching, right? And this is a small group of people using all their power and capabilities to serve the people and to secure their natural rights. And then there is, sorry, I keep having notifications pop up, but there is, we like to call it democracy, but democracy is actually the corrupted form of polity. The idea behind polity is every man secures the rights of every other man. So we're all looking out for each other. Well, I expect that to happen in heaven maybe one day, but it's not going to happen on earth. All right. So what you end up with is every time you try to establish one of the pure forms, it almost immediately declines into the corrupted form. So the corrupted form of monarchy is dictatorship. The corrupted form of aristocracy is oligarchy. The corrupted form of polity is democracy. And the thing is, it goes in a cycle. So what will happen is one will collapse into the next, which then will, the reaction to that is to establish the pure form of the next one, which then collapses into corruption, and you get the idea. Well, based on the information that I have and based on my analysis, what I understand is going on is these people are attempting to push forward the cycle of anacyclosis so that we fall into anarchy and they can simply pick up the pieces and they can establish their oligarchy. That's what's really going on here.
There's a comment. I want to pop that up just to show you in the comment section. And this is from Tarak Makto. I love that name. I know what movie that's from. Anyways, this is a comment about balkanization, and I'd like to get your assessment on that. What do you think about that? I've heard a lot of people make comment about that. That we're heading towards balkanization, and I kind of see it that if we have one more stolen election, then there are going to be states that are going to say, you know what, we're done. We're separating. We're going to go create our own state or our own country.
We've heard of people calling for secession at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, and it's just a larger form of what we've been talking about, which is neighbors killing neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. So what you got now is a bunch of neighbors killing a bunch of their neighbors next door. God knows the last thing we need is the Balkans. I mean, the Civil War where we split in two and fought was bad enough. But man, you want to talk about having, this little city inside this state is actually aligned with these 5 counties of this state, and all of the people there hate all of the people in these areas, but they'll work together with the other. It's going to be madness. I mean, nothing but straight up chaos and death and horror. And the only way that we can end it is by using the same formula that actually formed this country in the first place of so many disparate people. The simple fact is we have to believe that all men are created equal, that the power that created us and made us equal is higher than the power of government, that government is actually accountable to that power via the people who formed it, and that the government exists for no reason other than to secure the natural rights of each individual person. Until we can get back to that, all we can expect is chaos and death.
So you have taken the bold step and the difficult task of running for governor. I thought running for Congress was difficult enough.
It was.
West Virginia, I got to cover half the ground. You got to cover the whole state. So tell us about, tell us about that. Tell us about what's going on with your campaign. You chose to run in a third, as a third party with the Constitution Party. What was your thinking behind that? And because obviously there's, I think even I told you, I said, man, I wish you were, running under the Republican ticket, man. You'd have my full support. And my thinking is that, that in this 2-party system that we're in, it seems, because there's things that I don't agree with and don't like, especially it's not that I don't like the Republican Party. I love the platform and what the Republican Party platform stands for. I agree with it pretty much wholeheartedly. What I don't like is I don't like all of the elitism that seems to be there. All of the people who are within the party that are full of themselves, that have their own chosen candidate that they're going to support. I don't like the games they play. And so those are the things that I don't like. I can't stand. I have seen some changes in the leadership of, West Virginia's Republican Party, which, I think is a good thing. I think we're seeing some good things that are happening in the changes in the Republican Party, the National Republican Party, which I think is a good thing. They just, in fact, they just came out with a new platform. And I think a lot of the changes in the party are stemmed from the MAGA movement or the America First movement or whatever you want to call it. It seems that there's a shift, but I do agree with you. There are a lot of people within the party that are going to pretend like they are Trump supporters when in fact they're not, or they're going to pretend that they're America First when in fact they are not. And the easiest way to see that is the fact that you've got these guys that keep sending money to the Ukraine instead of helping our own country. That they keep, sending all of this aid to, to a country that's not even part of NATO. It's not even in any kind of alliance with the United States, but they are propping it up, and they're basically encouraging NATO to give U.S. weapons or NATO weapons now to be fired upon cities in Russia, which seems to me like a recipe for a third world war. So I'm really disappointed in a lot of what I've seen within the Republican Party in regards to our foreign policy. I think that they have been, especially outside of Trump's leadership. I think Trump, when he was in, he did a good job of maintaining the reins on keeping us out of, of these other conflicts around the world. But without his leadership there, like the Congress has just been all for it, sending money to the Ukraine.
All right, so let's start with the idea of how the MAGA movement has affected the trajectory of the Republican Party nationally. Remember what I said about the Tea Party earlier?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what's going on. You're seeing it happen again. The only way that they can get the power they want is to get enough people behind them. And the people want MAGA. And so they have to pretend like they're MAGA so they can continue in their little positions of, whether they're in an executive committee or whether they're an elected employee of the state government or the federal government. They have to play along. And these people that we're talking about are good at nothing but playing along. They will say and do whatever it takes to maintain their positions because their positions are everything to them. They have no principles. They have no interest in your principles. Their only principles are that they want to be in that position. They want to be recognized as somebody. They want to be famous. They want to be acknowledged. They want to have their little doorway, their tiny little doorway that they control so that they can say yes, no to people, and people have to kiss their rings. That's all they care about. That's it. They are quislings. They have no interest in the principles that keep us alive or safe or free. All right, so that's the first thing. So this whole, don't let them catch you by surprise. They don't give a rip about MAGA. The principles are not changing. The party will always be the same. And the people in the party that most people call rhinos, I have to be very clear about this. They are the party. The people you call rhinos are not you personally, but people you generally call rhinos are the Republican Party. Now, the rest of you who give them your votes, give them your money, give them your time, your effort, your resources, you are simply the dupes who make it possible for them to continue doing what they do. But actually pay attention to how the, quote, leaders of your party behave and your elected employees who are members of that party, and they are not listening to you at all. They just know the words that will make you vote for them. Carol Miller from West Virginia. Need I say more? All right. They don't give a rip, but they know the magic words to say. All right. So my story, I registered as a Republican on my 18th birthday. I grew up in South Louisiana. Everybody I knew was a Democrat. It blew their minds that I registered Republican, but Ronald Reagan was the president when I was in high school. And that guy had it going on. He knew what it was all about. And he had an attitude that we could win, that we could be the good guys, and that we could actually come through and be stronger on the other side. And I wanted a piece of that. And then, of course, I enlisted in the Army. And I spent all of that time in the Army. I didn't want to get involved in politics because we had experts who did that. And I was an expert at doing what I did, right? So I voted with my party because, the experts in my party were the ones who knew how to do what I wanted done. So if they want to send somebody to war, they need to send me. And if I want to send somebody to the Capitol, I need to send them. And that was really wrong. It was really wrong. We, the citizens, are in charge, not these clowns we send to the capitals. That's point number one. Point number two is when I came home from Iraq, I ran for delegate for state representative in West Virginia, solely based on the fact that I came to watch my legislature in action. And that was one of the biggest mistakes of my life because I left the Capitol angry, so angry I couldn't see straight. It takes me 5 hours to get home to my part of West Virginia from the capital of our state. And I spent 5 hours livid. Now, Nate, you and I have talked. I'm not the kind of guy who gets mad. I might get mad. I stay mad for 30 seconds. I deal with it and I move on. And I don't stay. 5 hours I was angry. I got home. My wife asked me what was bugging me. I told her, and she said, well, you need to do something about this. And so I ran for delegate, state representative. And when I announced that I was running, I had senior leaders in the party come up to me and tell me, look, we really don't need you. We've already picked a guy. Would you please just go home? Hey, how would you like to pretend like you live in the next district over and you can run against Jason Barrett? Well, Jason Barrett was a Democrat delegate for a long time, and now suddenly he's a Republican state senator. But anyway, they tried to convince me to pretend like I lived in a town I don't live in, actually commit fraud. This is the Republican State Executive Committee. Asked me to commit fraud and pretend like I live somewhere that I don't live so I could run in a different district. And I told them no. And I went ahead and ran in my district and I won. And the man that I beat in my primary was the chair of the Berkeley County Republican Executive Committee. And that made everybody a little unhappy with me. And I'm sorry they have that problem. But I then went to the legislature and I stood up for the Constitution. I attempted to impeach the governor. I attempted to remove the Speaker of the House because they were not doing their jobs under the Constitution. And I simply stated on a daily basis what the Constitution actually says. And I was removed from my chairmanship as the chair of Veterans Affairs because I tried to I tried to investigate missing FEMA money that had been dumped into our state to build homes after a big flood on the Elk River that washed away a bunch of people's homes. And a few houses were built and then the money disappeared. So I initiated an investigation, and next thing I know, I wasn't the chairman of Veterans Affairs anymore. The point is that the corruption runs deep. In 2018, I was reelected to my second term, but I was also elected as a member of the Berkeley County Republican Executive Committee. Walked in there, I sat through a few meetings and saw how profoundly corrupt they were. And the next thing I know, I end up talking with the chair of the West Virginia Republican Party, who tells me clearly, we don't want people like you here. And I said, define people like me. Short guys with big heads who talk too much? And she said, no, all you do is run around spouting the Constitution all the time, and we can't get anything done with you around. I said, well, madam, if you can't get things done because my speaking about the Constitution is preventing it, maybe you need to quit trying to do those things because they're unconstitutional. And she told me to get out of the party. So that's how I ended up with the Constitution Party. And they asked me to be their gubernatorial candidate. And in West Virginia, for a non-recognized party to put a candidate on the ballot, that candidate has to gather a number of signatures, valid signatures of registered West Virginia voters equal to 1% of the total number of people who voted in the last election. Well, for me, that's just shy of 8,000. Well, we've got the number that we need now. What we're doing is we're working hard to, before the deadline, which is August 1st, to gather a bunch more signatures to ensure that when my opponent, Patrick Morrissey, who's the current Attorney General, attempts to take me to court and get me thrown off the ballot, that we'll have some margin for error there. And I say win because I know the man very well, and I know what he's going to do, and he's going to do everything he can to make sure that I'm not his opponent.
And
so
and you know,
we are right now.
Patrick Morrissey, and this is just my opinion. I think, you know, as a Attorney General, you know, he's done some good things for our state. But when he ran as the when he decided to run for governor, he was not my choice for our Republican candidate. One of the things that I saw in him that just kind of, to me, was a very telltale sign was just the way that he conducted himself when he was going around. Seemed very much like a polished politician. Not a lot of personal, not a lot of personality really. But he's very polished as a politician, and he has a lot of support from big money, and that always concerns me.
He has a vast number of corporate sponsors. Now
yes.
Let's talk about, you say, and I keep hearing good people say this across the state, well, he's a great attorney general. And then I asked them what they mean by that. And they say, well, he got this reciprocity going with all these other states as far as gun rights. Okay, Nate, let's talk about that.
Sure.
If you and I both agree that we're hungry and we decide we want to go out to eat and we agree that we're going to go to Shoney's, did I twist your arm, knock you to the ground, and compel you to say uncle and then go to Shoney's with me?
No.
So what everybody's giving Patrick Morrissey credit for is a whole bunch of attorneys general in states that have, effective protections for Second Amendment rights, got together and said, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool if we just recognized each other's concealed carry licenses? And then Patrick Morrissey came home, beat on his chest, raised his hand in the air and said, I have done it. I have compelled all of these other losers to see things my way, and West Virginians can now travel in all of these states with their concealed carry permits. That's what happened. And everybody said, wow, what a great attorney general. The other thing is the cases that he's been party to in the Supreme Court. Now, a couple of them, he took lead on. But what he does is, like on this most recent one, he filed an amicus brief and then claimed effectively that the whole thing went through because he did such a good job on his amicus brief. Yeah, come on. The people who actually argued the case won the case. his amicus brief may or may not have been considered, but basically it's like sitting in the back of a classroom and going, I agree. Yeah, what he said. Who cares?
There is a lot of that goes on in politics. You see a lot of
man
people trying to take.
The man excels at one thing: self-promotion. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is
now,
very good.
Let me tell you some other things about him. When I was in the House of Delegates, I attempted to impeach Jim Justice. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I had good reason. And Morrissey is the one who called me up and told me how silly I was for trying to hold the governor accountable to the principles of constitutional republicanism. Then, when he started playing all of his games with executive orders and shutting down businesses and all that kind of stuff, my barber was arrested. I think you've met Les, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my 70-something-year-old barber, he's a veteran, he's a farmer. He's got to cut hair to live and feed his family, And, he got thrown in jail because Jim Justice said, no, you can't cut hair. So, I actually filed a petition for a writ of mandamus with the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals to hold the governor accountable to the state constitution. Patrick Morrissey came over to the Supreme Court of Appeals and told them, look, this Wilson guy, he just makes stuff up. He's crazy. He likes attention. Why don't you just ignore what he's saying? And that's what they did. I then took Jim Justice to the federal district court, Southern District of West Virginia, because he had unconstitutionally, unilaterally, and illegally moved the date of our primary election. In 2020, he just decided that the primary should be a month later because if we had it in May instead of June, we normally have it in May. He said, if we have it in May, everybody's going to die of COVID. So we're going to do it in June.
I think the most despicable thing that I saw that really bothered me was when he was holding gun raffles to get people to, to go get vaccinated. And now we know, in fact, I mean, I knew back. Yeah, I knew back then.
Jim. Yeah.
But I mean, I knew back then and was talking about it. But, how the heck these people are not held responsible for, the number of deaths that have resulted because of the vaccine.
I'm telling you how they're not responsible. I'm telling you how they're not held responsible. So Patrick Morrissey defended Jim Justice, right? And now Jim Justice is helping Patrick Morrissey to get his corporate sponsors lined out so he can become governor of West Virginia. And of course, Jim Justice is running for U.S. Senate, and Patrick's going to secure his base here in West Virginia because they're all on the same team, right? Because Pat's his little buddy. Pat's his protege.
So I want to share something. Listen, folks. Look, I ran for Congress as a Republican, and I did that because I've always been a Republican, and I believe in the Republican platform. But I did sign the petition for S. Marshall Wilson. I think that it's important that we have somebody that can go up against Morrissey. I really do. And so I would encourage anybody that's on right now, and we got 1,922 people that are watching the show live right now. If any of you are from West Virginia, please go and sign the petition. It doesn't cost you anything to do that, but it assures that there will be some competition. It assures that there will be somebody who will be able to run against Morrissey and who will be able to, cause Morrissey to maybe think twice about some of the things that he's doing and saying and some of the places where his money's coming from.
I can beat Morrissey with your help because the people of West Virginia are looking for someone who actually understands what is right and true and just. And I will take a bullet to the face to secure your natural rights because if you're not free, my kids aren't free. And all that matters to me in the entire world is ensuring that my kids can raise their kids in a free country. That's all that matters.
So folks, if you would, Marshall, tell people where they can go and how they can sign a petition so that you can be on the ballot. Because again, folks, it's not just about, here's the games that they play. He's got enough votes right now, enough signatures right now to be on the ballot. But what's going to happen is Morrissey, he's a very trained lawyer. He's going to go and he's going to get his lawyers to go through all of those signatures and try to find signatures that they can cast out for whatever reason that they can, because he doesn't want competition. So I'm asking you folks, if you're from West Virginia, please go and sign the petition so that Marshall will have a chance at being able to be on the ballot so that people can have a choice.
Thank you, Nate. I really appreciate you. And not just a choice, a superior choice.
Yes.
Because I will absolutely uphold the Constitution no matter how much it hurts me. You know, don't get me wrong. I'm a human being. I understand the temptations of power.
Where can people find out more about you and find out about your campaign and where you stand on the issues?
So it's Marshall with 2 L's, Marshall 4, use the number 4, WV.com, Marshall4WV.com. You can learn more about me than you could possibly want to know. Also, if you click, there's a big red block in the middle of the landing page. You click on the button that says sign the petition. There's a page there that will tell you how to sign the petition. Frankly, we've gotten to the point now where we don't have time to mail them in. So if you just get a hold of us, you say, I want a petition, we will have a volunteer come to your house, meet you wherever you want them to meet you if you don't want them going to your house. But they will come out to where you are, collect your signature, hand you some blank signature sheets and let you collect some signatures on your own. But our deadline is to the campaign is July 31st, and to the Secretary of State is August 1st.
Now, there's a couple of questions in the chat. One person's asking, do you have an X account to follow? What's your social media?
I do. Yeah, it's Smarshall, SMARSHALL. So at Smarshall, you should be able to find me on X. On Facebook, I've got a few different accounts, but I think that the one you're looking for would be S Marshall Wilson. There's no dot. I think it's Marshall 3.
Okay.
But
are you on?
Anyway.
Are those links on your website? If we
Absolutely.
go to your website,
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go. So, folks, probably the best thing to do is go to the website, and which is Marshall for WV, and that's Marshall with 2 L's, Marshall4WV.com, and the number 4.
Please.
And that will get you to this page, and then you can find out more about him there. But listen, folks, this is how we're going to take back our country. The only way it's going to happen is if we do it ourselves and go and support those people, who are fighting the good fight. And look, folks, I'm going to tell you, I'll be the first to tell you right now, it costs money, okay, to do a campaign. It really does. I really believe the only reason that I lost was because I did not have I had the best ground game by far out of anybody that was running. I had an amazing amount of volunteers. I did not do a direct mailer because direct mailers were expensive. Had I done a direct mailer, I think I would have won. I really do. Because even with no direct mailer, I had $100,000 I was working with, and that was it. I still got 13,000 votes and 13% of the vote out of 5 people that were running. And the guy that won, he ended up with, I want to say it was like 40-something%. So he couldn't even get 50%. He was really not a great candidate, but he had a ton of money. He had almost $2 million, including, and that includes $700,000 that was put into the race at the last minute by a dark money pool, and was basically put into a super PAC to run ads for him. But the fact is even with that, he couldn't get 50%. And so money does matter. And so if you have the ability to support Marshall, I'm sure there's a link on the page where folks can go to do that. So please do, because that is how we're going to change things, is if we can support good candidates that actually believe in the Constitution. The fact is that when we take our oath, whether we're in the military or whether we are in the government or whether, you're a government employee or a politician, you're not taking the oath to some person. You're not taking it to the president of the United States. You're not taking it to anything but to the Constitution. And that matters. And in the case of a governor, it's not just the U.S. Constitution, but it's also the Constitution of that state.
Yes, sir.
And so, look, folks, I moved to West Virginia. I chose to come here because I wanted to live somewhere where I could live free, where, you know, I could live with people that had similar ideals as myself. That's why I came to this great state, and I love it here. And it has its issues, just like any state. But the fact is that, you know, my neighbors, you know, we're all pretty much, you know, have very similar ideology. And that's one of the things that I loved about this place, was that it wasn't all woke. Right. And so we have an opportunity here, but we have had a problem in our government, in our state government, with corruption. It's existed. I mean,
absolutely.
You had the Rockefellers that came in here, and, you know, and they brought a lot of, you know, industrialization, which wasn't necessarily bad, but they brought a lot of their corruption with it. And
right.
And there are things that need to happen in the state, and this state may be the holdout. You know, should the proverbial shit hit the fan, this state might be a place for people to flee to, because we still believe in your Second Amendment here.
We will build here a bastion of liberty in West Virginia.
That's right.
That's what we'll do. Yes, sir.
That's right. And I'll tell you what, it is a beautiful state, but it is a heck to drive. This state, man. It is. There's a reason they call it the Mountain State. You know, there's only one state that is entirely made up of the Appalachians, and it's West Virginia.
Speaking of that, thanks for bringing that up. I want to apologize to you and to your viewers for the fact that I'm sitting in my truck. My intent was to get somewhere fast enough to my hotel room for the night, because I drove from Marlinton. And I'm headed to Putnam County for their fair. And I just stopped off in Charleston and thought maybe I could find a place to sit and talk with you, but I ended up in my truck, so my apologies.
No problem. Hey, Marshall, I always end the show. First off, I want to give you the last word. You know, is there anything that you want people to take away from our conversation tonight? Here's your opportunity. And then afterwards, I usually end by, you know, just saying a prayer, and I like to close in prayer. But, you know, you being a Baptist minister, I'd like to offer that up to you to do that.
I'm honored. Thank you.
And as soon as you say amen, we're going to cut right to the end of the show. So,
Thanks,
so if you would give us your last word, and then you can go ahead and close us out in prayer.
Hi, my name is Marshall Wilson. I'm your Constitution Party candidate for governor of West Virginia. My wife is a retired Navy captain. I'm a retired Army major. We have 9 children, and my entire purpose in life is to ensure that my kids can raise their kids in a free country. Send me to Charleston, and I will stand up for your rights if it costs my life. All right, you ready to pray?
Yep.
Great, good, gracious God, thank you for this opportunity to talk with Nate. Thank you for this show. Thank you, Lord, for the beautiful day that we had. And thank you, Lord, for the fact that there are so many people who are willing to put their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the line to secure the natural rights of their fellow citizens. It's an honor to stand among them. I love you very much. Thank you for all that you provided for us. In the name of your Son, my Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. God bless you guys, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we will see you again this coming week on Tuesday. And with that, stay strong, stay vigilant.
Raise some cane. You gotta raise some cane. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some cane, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some cane.